The U.S. President Donald Trump threatening tariffs on Canadian fertilizer in order to bolster domestic production there. We have more on this and what it could mean with Joshua Linville, Vice President of Fertilizer at StoneX Group. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So there was outcry in the U.S. in the spring when a higher tariff was applied to potash. So does it even make sense to revisit?
Well, unfortunately, this is going to be one of those things that the U.S. farmers are going to suffer because of. The U.S. is very dependent on imported potash. Now, for the longest time, this wasn't an issue. Canada is the largest supplier, exporter of potash in the world, and it's not even a close second. So as long as we stay on good terms, we had plenty of supply. But if all of a sudden we take measures to block or slow those imports, well, we got to start looking at different places. And our second biggest supplier has been Russia. This is going to be something we got to watch very, very closely.
Okay. Does the U.S. have accessible supplies in its own country of potash to satisfy any sort of demand?
We do have reserves and we do have production. The problem is current production falls far short of what their overall demand is. That's why we're still bringing these imports. And could we increase our production? Absolutely. And there are works going on to try and increase those production flows. But these aren't things that are measured in days, weeks, months. It's the things that are measured in years. So in order to start supplementing what we're basically talking about cutting off today, that's not something we could do relatively quickly. It would take several years before those mines become operational and send the first ton to those farmers.
Okay, you mentioned Russia, for example, as another alternative. Belarus, I believe, is the other one. Has the U.S. ever turned to either of these countries for a supply of potash?
Actually, yes, that's a very normal supply. When you look at the U.S. imports on a yearly basis, about 88 to 90% of those flows do originate from Canada. But our second biggest potash supplier is Russia, and about 8 to 10% of our overall imports come from Russia. And then you start to break it down. They are our single biggest urea supplier, our biggest UAN supplier. And so across the broad spectrum of major fertilizers that the farmer uses, Russia's up there. They are one of our bigger participants.
With what is going on in the U.S. right now, and we saw the rollout of aid today for American farmers, would they be able to withstand a price increase in potash?
Did they withstand it? Yes, they can likely survive. The subsidy payment will help. It's going to help bridge a little bit of the gap. But a lot of people are going to look at that and say, well, that falls far short of what I've had to deal with. My inputs, not just fertilizer, my inputs overall are significantly higher price than what normal is. My grain prices are significantly lower. So, yes, the subsidy payment is going to help. It's going to give me a little bit of cash flow, but it fails to come anywhere close to actually solving the equation with these farmers. They're stuck in the middle of this war on their inputs and their outputs.
How widely used is potash in the U.S.?
It's going to depend on where you're at regionally, but for the most part, it is. When we look at fertilizers, there's 5 major fertilizers that we cover, and potash is absolutely in that biggest group.
Okay, so it's widely used across the U.S. Are there alternatives? You mentioned there are other fertilizers that are in that group. Could it be replaced by something else?
Unfortunately, when you look at the plant needs, things like phosphate, potash, nitrogen, of course, all the micro fertilizers that are out there. So unfortunately, when it comes to potash, there's not really a secondary backup product out there that can all of a sudden just be entered into the marketplace to take up that demand, that potash to grow that crop for 2026.
All right. Joshua Linville is Vice President of Fertilizer at StoneX Group. Thanks for your time.